Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Cheap Seats. My name is Mpho. I've got Waheed, Cyrus, Dean with me. We're talking all things Premier League as we do on a weekly basis, and we've also got an FPL show, so look out for that later on in the week. This week is an interesting week, but remember that the show is partnered by Classic Shirts ZA. So let me just put on their logo so everybody can see right there next to Waheed. And the shirt of the week is Cyrus's favorite one because now you can't buy Chelsea shirts. So we thought we'd work with the guys at Classic Shirts to bring out a retro shirt that you actually can buy. So here it is, Chelsea 1997 to 99 home kit. If you're a Gianfranco Zola fan, like Cyrus is, this is the kit you want. But Cyrus, let us know a little bit more because you've been a Chelsea fan before the Abramovich era, before the mass.
That's actually the first. Where people that's the first kit I ever had. That's the first kit I ever had.
Well, that's so you got this one.
Wait, isn't 2003 the first time Chelsea ever had a kit?
No. Before we used to play in just jumpers and t-shirts. But as is, in fact, it's funny you say that because United historians who also only just open the record books at a certain point in time don't necessarily acknowledge some of the stuff that happened beforehand. But a great kit for a team that used to play some incredible football and some incredible moments as well. And who doesn't love Gianfranco Zola? I mean, he scored some of the greatest goals in league history. There's a skills package of him absolutely murdering Jamie Carragher. I don't know how Carragher's career survived after that, but just an absolute legend.
Okay. Remember, you can use the Cheap Seats 50 discount code. It just lets the guys at Classic Shirts ZA know that we sent you. So please do that. Please check them out at Classic
Shirts. Do you remember playing in that kit in 1998-99? United were on the course for a treble, and who stood in the way? Chelsea Football Club in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. And were it not for Torre Andre Flo clearing a Chelsea goal off his own, like off the goal line.
I remember that.
I think there was a shot from Gianfranco Zola, which Torre Andre Flo stopped from going in. United might not have won the trip.
Yeah. Absolutely insane.
That's my biggest memory of that kit. I think there was a semi-final in the quarterfinal. Paul Scholes and Roberto Di Matteo both got sent off in the first round, and there to be a replay.
So we need to have a separate section for your little memorabilia.
No, but we like it. No, but
you don't like it.
No, because they take us.
Dean's not had a good time. That's the problem, right?
I've never had a good time any season
ever. Stefan Everson. You'd be like, you remember Stefan Everson? He was fantastic.
When Spurs win when we win a trophy, that will be the best year ever.
Exactly, and then we can talk about that.
Just like 29, a great time to be alive.
Yes, but remember, what I love about this kit, it takes us to a pre-Abramovich era because we're going to move into a Chelsea era that doesn't have Roman Abramovich soon. So that's pretty good. So we just want to get people those
These historical moments are Mendes goal, Carroll goal line. That's the one Dean remembers best.
Well, like victories over teams. Those are the things exactly, like Champions League finals. So they have as many Champions League finals as Arsenal.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's nothing to
That's a trophy you can hold out.
Yeah. And then they beat United something like 4-0 or what was the score? 6-1. I mean, they'll make another DVD. I mean, these days they'll just stream it. Spurs.
Yeah, Amazon Live, all or nothing Spurs. We love that. Okay, guys. Let's move on. Next, so this week. It's a bit of an international week. Teams are trying to qualify for the World Cup, so we're preparing for the weekend. Massive game between Leicester and Manchester United, mid-table clash. So look out for that at the end of on Saturday. This week we're talking Premier League regression list. That is the list of players who have regressed from the previous season's performance to this year's performance. And so we all have a little bit of a list of players, of guys who've regressed. Some guys might say the entire Manchester United team, but actually I think that's a bit of a fallacy. Some guys might even go for the easy one, Timo Werner, who started badly and is just on a downward slide. Waheed would like to put in Romelu Lukaku, but he can't because Romelu was signed at the beginning of the year. But we're going to go through that. And I'm going to start with Dean. Dean, which players do you have on your regressions list? I know you were like, oh, Luke Shaw. And Luke Shaw is really good, but it seems like it's only good for England and never for Manchester United. But who do you have?
Old Roberto Carlos that Waheed was praising as the second coming. And look at him now.
Waheed.
So we'll leave that one alone. But so two guys that kind of stood out for me for different reasons. I think the first one could be the entire team as well. But for me, James Madison from Leicester has not only struggled but because of injury, but he's what you would like in a star player, which he is definitely one of the star players in that Leicester squad, is to kind of shine when times get tough. You want especially in the position he's playing where he's kind of pulling the strings in that team. Fine, if Vardy goes out, he should still be able to put it on a plate for Daka or Iheanacho or Barnes or someone like that. And if you have a look at his stats this season, fine, it's not in comparison, it's 26 games so far. He scored 8 goals this season and 8 goals last season. But his assists are way down. They're half of what they were last season. And that's what you want from your playmaker in that Leicester squad. So could have picked anyone from that Leicester squad. But I think James Madison, especially given the season that Leicester had last year where they were top 4 for a long time and then kind of slipped out, which is the classic Leicester way. But then winning the FA Cup, it felt like a bit of a time where Leicester was in all of our minds of they are now cemented in the top 6 and probably take over either Spurs or Arsenal in that top 6 discussion. And they just haven't done it this season. It's shown now that the cracks that are in that team, Brendan Rodgers is reaching his ceiling. You know, is he actually going to be able to take that team to something better than what they have been achieving or could achieve with that squad? Their recruitment's not bad. We all praise their recruitment. They've got owners that act when they need to act. So there's definitely frailties in that team. And James Madison, for me, he's just way too inconsistent for the talent he has. And I think a lot of guys would have been looking at him, especially in that shortage in that number 10 role. Like, I was looking at him and saying, geez, Spurs, go after him, please. Like, he's an Eriksen replacement, like for like, let's go. But the inconsistencies he's showing, the inability to step up when the big games come and the center stage is there for you to show up, he shows up against.
Let me stop you right there. Because I thought between Madison and Barnes is the one I would put on this list. Because if I look at his Madison stats, I think Madison's got 8 goals.
Yeah, 8 goals. But he's scoring them against like no one. And he scores like 2 or 3 goals a game, and then he goes quiet.
Can we just say that regression means that they've taken a step backwards in their career? So they had laid out the benchmark of their own performance levels, and now from there they've gone backwards. So let's explicitly say that that's what we mean by regression.
Fair enough.
But
cool.
To that point, I'm kind of with Mpho here, where I look at the stats and I think stats-wise, is it that bad considering 8 goals? But there was one game I think he scored, a couple.
He scored a couple goals. It's a bit. Yeah,
but it does paper over the stats a bit. I mean, in essence, the problem with Madison though is that he also fails the eye test. Is that he just isn't the same level that he was before.
Yeah,
and I think that's where, as to your point, Dean, his impact on games seems to have diminished quite a bit. And that really is one of the critical things. So, that's why we talk about regression, because it's the regression in impact as well. And I think when you look at Leicester, maybe, I don't know why we didn't put coaches in here. Maybe one of you guys did. Because if anything, Brendan Rodgers would be one of those. Nuno.
No, but Cyrus, Brendan Rodgers, I'm going to go to you.
United job 6 months ago.
Yeah,
everyone was saying I would have taken
conversation anymore.
Yeah, no way.
But guys, my point is, Brendan Rodgers is the same Brendan Rodgers we've seen. This is what he gives you. This is the Brendan Rodgers. There's no. Spent. Yeah, it's not that he's spent. He's always been like this. Every season, somehow something goes wrong. He's a type of coach who only works well when his players are playing well. Outside of that, like, Brendan Rodgers is just an average Joe. Last season, Leicester were playing incredible ball. Barnes was playing well. Madison was playing well. Vardy, Iheanacho was scoring. Iheanacho gave him 12 goals off the bench. That's what you want. But then all of a sudden now you're sitting there and you're like, this guy's the same.
But okay,
this guy's always been Brendan Rodgers.
In his defense, you did say that when his players are playing well, every coach will do well when their players are playing.
I was about to say that any coach can play. Any coach can coach well.
No, but what I mean, like when the mark for me as a coach is when everyone's not playing well, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I wanted to put Ralph there, because Manchester United started off okay-ish, well done, and then all of a sudden it just after January the train started falling off, and I was like, dudes, you know, try to do something, you know. What's your calling card?
Sometimes you've extracted as much as you can extract out of certain players, and perhaps that's what happens with Madison at Leicester. Maybe he'd be better suited somewhere else where not every bit of creative impetus is on his shoulders. And I think that's one of the
he hangs around Grealish and Dele too much, and he needs to get out of that like little crew and focus on the football.
Hang out with Jamie Vardy, huh?
Yeah, there's way better people to hang around.
So let me go to Waheed. Waheed, I know you're gonna pick Jack Grealish. Tell me why.
Because a year ago, Jack Grealish was the darling of English football. I would have paid £100 million for him to come to Man United. I was very jealous of City getting him. I thought
you can't be jealous of City when you spent money trying to bring in Cristiano. Like, I don't understand.
You know what I mean?
You had money to spend. You spent it wrong, bro.
You spent it badly. The thing is, I think that historically, Ole had wanted Jack Grealish, and the world conspired so that he eventually landed with Donny van der Beek, but we'll leave that for a separate discussion.
Down that avenue again.
But what I'm saying is that Jack Grealish was a £100 million player. He went to the World Cup like as almost with the tag of England's hope and savior at the World Cup. Every time he warmed up, the crowd went wild. He got a standing ovation every time he came off the bench. There's a boy who had ripped it up at Villa and really had the world at his feet. And I think there was an interview in December where Jack Grealish sort of said that it's been a massive surprise to him how little time he gets on the ball at City compared to Aston Villa. And it's been a massive surprise to him. And I think that in terms of where his career was and where it's now, he's really regressed a lot, and he's not nearly the same player he was 12 months ago. In mitigation, you could look at a player like Bernardo Silva. You could look at a few other players who Pep has taken a bit of time to bed in, and their second season has been a lot better than the first season. So we could look at it from that perspective. But as it stands, I think Jack Grealish has regressed a hell of a lot in this first season. His output isn't nearly where it was. And I know that we don't base everything off stats, because of course going to throw some stats at me just now. But he's also failing the eye test. He's not like grabbing a game by the balls and like pushing City on at times, and he's needing his teammates to do that when he's unable to.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Is that the stat you sent in the group?
No, that's Bruno. Okay. That's just.
So what it sounds like you're talking about is the big fish in a small pond becomes regular fish in a big thing. And I think that, dare I say it, you're almost comparing him to Sean Wright-Phillips when he came to Chelsea. The thing about Jack Grealish, though, is that he will be a league winner, because that's what will happen at City. And they will find a way to utilize him more. He is looking a player that's behind the pace, definitely, but he's also not had to play with this level of player consistently. And so when you look at his mistakes, they are under a massive microscope now compared to when he was at Villa, where he could lose the ball and just be like, whatever. Now the stakes are really high. He's not a game breaker. I mean, you could look at somebody like Phil Foden and wonder why the hell City spent any of that money on Grealish when they've got Foden there, considering they've got Riyad Mahrez there, considering they've got all these other attacking options. So, I mean, I get it. I understand exactly why you're sort of singling out Grealish, but I also feel as if he does need a bit more time. And in
Cyrus,
a way,
I think one of the bigger issues, Cyrus, with Grealish and why he might need more time is that at Villa, he eventually settled on a position. He was their number 10 and everything happened around him. I don't think he'll ever, in his City career, as long as
that's because that's not the City way. He'll never have it.
As long as Pep is the manager, he'll never have a specific position in that team. And maybe a player like Jack Grealish needs to have a sort of a position. He needs to be told, you're going to be a number 10 or you're going to be a left wing. He's almost like coming into the team 1 week as a left wing and 1 week as a number 10 and 1 week as a conventional midfielder, and he's sort of struggling to figure out his role in all these moving parts in a Pep system.
But can I then say this? Isn't that part of his football education? Isn't that what makes him a better player? Pep players can play whatever position you want. We've seen Cancelo play in the midfield. We've seen Cancelo play on the left. We've seen him rotate that front six, including that midfield, around.
It's the Ajax way.
Yeah, isn't it a step forward? Even though his stats don't say the same and he's struggling, but isn't it a step forward in his education? Because if Jack can get this right, City have a very dangerous player who could possibly, if KDB wanted to move on, they could use in that little role with all those other parts. But because he's learned to play the different areas, he's become better. Look at Raheem Sterling. Sterling never has a similar position. And now all of a sudden he's settled on that false nine and it's working. Mahrez also was moved around a little bit, but I think Mahrez was pushed. It's the same thing with Phil Foden. And I think that's what Pep does. Yes, it's a step back from...
Can I throw something back at you, Mpho?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be 27 soon. He's not 21.
We know.
And he's at an age where it shouldn't be the base part of his footballing education. You don't buy a £100 million player at the age of almost 27 and expect their footballing education to start. You buy $100 million, the first ever British £100 million player. You expect him to come in and be the player he was where he came from.
But look, Harry Kane would have had the same issue. I think Harry Kane would have had the same issue.
No ways. Harry Kane is untouchable. That's what you're talking about. Harry Kane.
but exactly. Though sometimes you have defenders who are bought for 80 million. And the price tag. But you understand what I'm saying, right? So in essence,
which one?
You're looking at the price
which
tag.
Defenders are
I won't mention names. We all know. we don't have to mention Voldemort's name to know who we're talking about. But the thing about this is that, to Mpho's point, he's never had to play in any system like this throughout his career. And I think this is where, and I bring this up, potentially English footballers have struggled. Because they are very much, this is your position, that's what you do, and that's it. A lot of the European continental players are able to shift around. You just look at any of the Portuguese players who have been in some of the top teams in the league. Diogo Jota, Bernardo Silva, and Bruno. And these guys have managed to find a way to tweak their games in order to be successful in different positions. Bruno, maybe not so much when things have changed under Ralph, but to your point, Waheed, that's not why you spend £100 million. But that is the UK tax, right? Where it's like, okay, you want Jack Grealish, boom, money on the table or else. And I think that Jack Grealish would not have been 100 mil for any other team other than City.
They had spare cash. They had money from Harry Kane and they were like, we've got this money, we have to get something super insane and spend all this cash. And that's what I went.
But that's it. It's always about that marquee signing. And
okay, guys,
used to have that.
Let's move on a little bit more. Cyrus, what's your regression list player? Who are you
it's one of my favorites to always pick on, and this is Marcus Rashford. Absolutely incredible human being. Look, oh my goodness. Look, Fabio Borini, also ex-Chelsea player. I love that. The thing about Marcus Rashford is that he really is an incredible human. As far as a footballer goes, he's really not lived up to the hype, and United have been touting him as being this, I don't know, next Danny Welbeck for so long that, the hope had been he'd be
Please
someone.
Don't sell him to us. Please.
It's obviously happening. It's obviously happening. But let's look at his stats. And this is where we like to look at the numbers. So he came into the league, 15-16 season?
Mm-hmm.
11 games.
That long ago. Yeah.
But he's been around. 5 goals, 2 assists. You fast forward to 32 games the next season, 5 goals, 2 assists. And then from there, his best output was 2019-20, where he had 17 goals, 9 assists, and we couldn't hear the end of Marcus Rashford is something special. But the other thing about Rashford was that he scored important goals. He used his pace effectively, did some really good things for the teams that he was on, though everybody felt he wasn't. The coaches weren't extracting the very best out of him. But since that 1920 season, it's been backwards. 11 goals, 11 assists. 11 assists is fantastic. Then this season, 4 goals, 2 assists. But that's also on 19 appearances as opposed to 37. So something's happened with Marcus Rashford. Maybe it's COVID. Maybe there's too much.
I just think you got your stats a bit wrong there.
Don't blame me.
You're talking purely Premier League because
purely
last
Premier
year,
League. Purely Premier League. I'm looking at Premier League. Purely Premier League, because that's primarily what we look at as the making of a
player. You guys aren't in Champions League anymore, Wade. I don't know if you know
that. he missed
Were you
game.
Ever?
Yeah.
What was the name of the league you played in the final?
2 years ago.
But anyway, the thing about Rashford, though, is that, and I always say this, I don't know what the expectation is when he comes on as a sub or even when he's starting. Is he expected to take on players and then advance the ball towards goal to try and have a shot? Is he going to try and create something and then, pass for an assist? And this is why I feel a lot of teams look at Marcus Rashford and feel like, oh, well, we'll take our chances. If he's the one who's going to come at us, then so be it. He doesn't strike fear in anybody's hearts. Yet he is and has been central to what was good about United in the not so distant past. So that for me is a clear sign of regression. And I don't like picking on the young guy, but I mean young in terms of as opposed to me. But he's running out of opportunities. And dare I say it, if you look at like how people always used to ask, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was at another team, would he have played more and been a better striker? And the chances are he would have been shite. Excuse my language. But I think that Marcus Rashford has the opportunity to prove people wrong by leaving United. I just don't know what club is willing to take a bet on him. I've seen reports on Liverpool, and then I think of Oxlade-Chamberlain, and I think, yep, that could definitely happen again. And I see shades of Welbeck at Arsenal. So I just don't know what I'm going to get.
You must go to Newcastle. That's what I'm going to say.
Everton. All the riffraff.
No, I've got a few things. So 100%, I agree. Marcus Rashford has gone back this season. He is one of the worst performing players at Man United at the moment. Like there is no like defense of anything Cyrus has said. Having said that, I do think there is a player in there, and I've said so before. But one of my issues is that the position that he has historically thrived in is on the left side of a front three, and Jadon Sancho is about 10 times the player Marcus Rashford is. It's that simple. So we've bought a player who was supposed to come in for the right wing position, and we bought a player who was meant to play on the right wing, but is actually much better on the left. So the issue for Rashford now is that his competition is much better than him, which means that Rashford has been moved around a little bit. He's been put up front, and he's very ineffective up front because he doesn't lead the line well. He never has led the line well. He started off as a striker at United because we were in a crisis.
We had no one else.
Yeah, we had no one else. And he then got moved to the left where he was admittedly quite good, especially in that 1920 season after lockdown. He came in, and him, Martial, and Greenwood scored 61 goals between them in that season, which was even more than Liverpool's front three. But he's now got competition in his spot, who is better than him. And that has meant that Ralph has used him predominantly as a substitute, which now Rashford is throwing his toys out of the cart about, and predominantly on the right. And Rashford isn't very good on the right. He can't do anything that Rashford is good at is taken away by playing him on the right. And all his shortcomings are almost highlighted when he's playing on the right. So he's now found himself in a catch-22 position where, despite even the minutes he gets, is in a position which doesn't play to his strengths, and it's now almost in a self-fulfilling prophecy where no matter what he does, he's being shit, and it's almost like he's spiraling. The kid is spiraling. You saw it the other day, like him lashing out at the crowd is so out of character. Like after the game against Atletico, he lashed out at some at some fans, and that's out of character. And you can see that he's spiraling as like in terms of his mental game and stuff like that. So I don't almost see like how this is going to be rectified apart from a move away from United. But again, where does he go? And who's going to take on a player at £200,000 a week, which United have dished out a contract before?
There is a Saudi-backed team in the league that is number 3 on the log since January that would love to have a striker like Marcus Rashford at that price, even though it's a little bit too much. My regression list player is another. I'll probably go try and defend him, and that's Bruno Fernandez. I think statistically, Bruno has taken a step back. And also, even for his development, even though I know for his career, not his development, his career, even though I know multiple coaches and everything else, but what Manchester United did this year, you can blame Manchester United if you want, Waheed, but what they did this year, they've hurt that man's career, especially taking him off set piece duty, taking him off the penalties, pretty much taking the ball away from him. Ralph's little 4-2-2-2 system never worked. And all it did was took the ball away from Bruno. And then you can look at the stats, and I think you've given me more stats. But I think in the Premier League, he's half, like 9 goals, 14 assists. Last season was on 28 goals and 17 assists. That's massive difference. Yes, game-wise.
Penalties is a heck of a lot of penalties, Mpho.
But in Bruno's defense, though, and I'll say this again as well about Harry Kane. They've now found where they fit. So we are seeing 100% there was a dip, but you now take Bruno out of that United squad or in starting 11 and they fall apart completely.
Yeah. That was going to be my argument. Our best player.
But you've wasted half a
season. 100% agree with you, regressed. But I think it's a regression that has been caught maybe just in the nick of time to prevent a Rashford situation from occurring where you've completely ruined his career. I think Bruno had no idea where he fitted in that team when Ronaldo arrived, because before that Ronaldo arrived, even he was performing. That first game of the season, he scored a goal. I think it was 1 or 2. He assisted. He looked like the Bruno we had previous season, and then got lost completely. Had no idea where to play, what he did, what he was supposed to do. But I think now it's a little bit better than, well, it's 100% better because Bruno's the first name on that sheet, no doubt.
Yes, he is.
He is our best player, and I will say that it's evident that Ralph almost realized that the best player in the team is Bruno Fernandez, and the 4-4-2-2-2 takes away.
4-2-3 is what works now.
So he's gone back to the 4-2-3-1 simply because it puts Bruno Fernandez in dangerous positions on the field and allows Bruno Fernandez to do what he does best. I know people will hit you with pass percentage completion and a whole lot of bullshit about Bruno Fernandez, but Bruno Fernandez is a high risk, high reward player. He's going to try high risk stuff with when it comes off, you have a high reward, like his assist against Atletico in the first game. And with a high risk, high reward player, what you need is volume. You need him to be trying those things. That is what Bruno Fernandez does. You can't take that away from him by trying to make him play backwards and sideways passes. He needs to be playing those passes that make Bruno Fernandez. And I think that we get in needs to understand that this is our best player.
He needs people behind him to be able to say, I'll try these passes, but if they don't work, I need someone who's going to
You got to step up in defense.
Yeah.
Look, but one thing you can't put at Bruno Fernandez's doorstep is a lack of work ethic. When he loses the ball, he's the first one to break his neck and try and get back.
When he loses the ball so far,
he's a worker.
There's no
Okay, guys.
Let's defend. But fine.
Let's let Cyrus give us his point on Bruno.
Okay, I was just going to say, if you look at it from a basketball perspective, and Mpho, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Points to turnovers ratio, right? In the sense that any player who has a high number of turnovers has got to make sure that the rest of the team and himself contribute defensively. Because if you're giving the ball away, it's going to cost you, on the defensive end. And that's one of the things. So I like that in football, you have these high risk, high reward kind of guys, but Real Madrid realized they had to have a Makalele there. Chelsea were lucky to have a Kante. Leicester had a Kante. and then you look at some of the others. I mean, Fabinho, Fernandinho. You have those guys who are able to mop up, and then dare I say, that's why everybody's licking their lips at Declan Rice, because it allows the guys who go forward to play with a little bit more freedom. And we're actually talking about our best ever 11s. If you remember Waheed, and you mentioned Roy Keane. And Roy Keane was a great box-to-box midfielder. But that's the thing, is in the sense that if he made a mistake, he'd rush back. But when he wasn't around, Nicky Butt was the guy who sat there. And so there was always a safety net for players who, Giggs were not known for his tackling back. Scholes, you didn't want him doing that. So many red cards. But I think that's where United really need to look at saying, okay, if we're going to free Bruno, we can't be expecting Fred or McTominay to be the guys to wipe up the back, considering what's behind them.
That goes for United, Arsenal, and Spurs, though, to that point.
Yes.
All three of those teams need that guy.
But the point on Arsenal is that Mikel's taken that out the team. We no longer have high-risk, high-reward. High-risk, high-reward left with Aubameyang and Ozil. Those players who you just put them in their position on the field, they do your stuff, and then you don't care about defense because you've got guys to help them out because you just want them sitting there. And so that's ended. But with a Bruno, that's the sad part about Manchester United, is that you had a season where you had Bruno Fernandez in his prime, and you couldn't utilize him in a league where that's becoming more about the big hitters than actually the team. If you look at Manchester City created a collection of big hitters. Liverpool have Mane, Jota, as well as Salah, who can do what they need to do and hit big at any time. And also Trent as well. Trent's high risk, high reward because the dude can't defend. But the man when he goes forward,
he's Roberto Carlos saying, once he loses the ball, he's got to run back and do something.
And that's the indictment about United, even in that first part of the season with Solskjaer. Because for me, who cares? It's Bruno. Ronaldo's the cherry on the top. He's the icing on the cake. Bruno's
so what you're saying is we should talk about Bruno.
We should talk about Bruno. But my thing is that his
just some Mpho references. Don't mind me.
But my thing is that I'll blame Manchester United for this. I'll blame Solskjaer, I'll blame Ralph for this, because you had a star. You had somebody who got you to number 2 in the log last year when you didn't know how we got there. But then all of a sudden, this season, it's like,
Mpho, just remember, they also announced they want the refs to train with them again. So the star players could be back. The star players could be back. I mean, and if anything, Bruno will definitely get a couple more penalties.
Yeah. No, that's true. And now that we've decided that is Bruno still taking penalties, or is it Ronaldo?
It will always be Ronaldo. Ronaldo will die.
Bruno missed a penalty against. Bruno was on penalties after Ronaldo arrived. He missed that penalty against Aston Villa in like the third game that Ronaldo was back, and he's been off penalties since.
Yeah,
sure.
Ronaldo probably has penalty tattooed on him somewhere.
But we can't leave the show without talking about Harry Kane. We cannot leave the show without talking about Harry Kane. I'm going to start with Waheed. Is he still worth 100 million?
Harry Kane is what is worth whatever a buying club is willing to pay for him, and that goes for any.
So PC. That's so PC.
I'd agree with that. Yet my point to that, and the counterpoint to that, is no player is worth 100 million. It's ridiculous. We need to stop with these kinds of numbers. We should go back to something a little bit more, and dare I say, feasible in a 50 million, where we're like, oh my goodness, they cost 50 million. I mean, because 150 million, it's madness, absolute madness.
Coming from a guy who paid 70 million for a goalkeeper can't catch.
Yeah,
that's
but
inflation.
That is exactly my point. That is exactly my point. He should never have been that expensive. Nobody should be that expensive. And we wonder why certain football clubs are dying, because nobody can keep up. And as much as people have blamed the likes of City and Chelsea, I always like to bring up the fact that United were central to a lot of this, because they could outspend anybody back in the day, and they're just in the sort of same pool of rich clubs. We need to even the playing field a lot from a monetary perspective. But that's a whole another discussion.
Well, it is. Like, once upon a time, United, I think, paid £3.75 million for Roy Keane, which was more than the club's revenue for the year at the time. So it would be effectively like United buying a player for £700 million at the moment.
Yeah.
That would effectively be it. Having said that, United, blah, 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 self-generated funds. They just took $1 billion out of the club. We didn't have oil money and Saudi money and all sorts.
Yeah.
But, that's another discussion.
Yeah, it's a totally different discussion.
That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Are there any players you... Yes.
No, wait. I've got one more thing to say about Harry Kane.
Harry Kane, I've seen. So we've all seen the news. United have him at the top of their transfer list, which I know Dean is gonna go on his high horse. And the fact of the matter is, Harry Kane is gonna want to leave Spurs again at the end of the summer. It's just about where he's gonna go now and whether Daniel Levy allows it. So if United, apparently, according to some very, very reliable journals, he's top of United's wanted list. And I must say, it worries me because I've seen some people saying that it would be like Ferguson to go to the Premier League and buy the Premier League's best player. That is true. When that player was 26, he would not have spent £100 million on a player 29. I mean, he did in Van Persie, but that was for a very underinflated fee. I think he paid £21 million for Van Persie.
He gave us players.
It wasn't a club record fee. Here it would be a club record fee for a player who effectively has three good years left. It would be peak United post-Ferguson, looking after commercial interests rather than footballing interests. Harry Kane is a damn good player.
That's where I disagree.
Is he worth £100 million right now? No, because he's right at the end of his career.
He's not, and this is where I disagree with everyone that says he's got 3 good years left. He doesn't. He has
How many?
6 years left, if that. Because you look at the list of, let's have a look at the greatest strikers right now in the world, right? The best, okay? Lukaku's fallen off that list. So last year we all would have put Lukaku probably on that list. Maybe you were Waheed not, but you've got Kane up there. You've got Lewandowski up there, who's even older than Kane, right? You've got Haaland, who everyone is after Haaland. Everyone absolutely knows that. And you probably put Benzema up on that list, who's even older, right, than Kane. So in terms of...
we're discounting Mbappe and those guys. They're forwards, not strikers.
But I'm looking at the classic, number 9.
I'm just asking. I'm not asking.
Classic, your normal out-and-out striker.
So number 9.
Not your fake news, Raheem Sterling, full Fodens, Nines, Havertz things, right?
Okay. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
About your normal 9.
Guys, we're touching Dean on the studio here.
No, what I'm saying is Harry Kane is priceless to Spurs, right? Because without Harry Kane in Spurs, we are a way worse team. 100% walk away from that. But if you look at what Harry Kane can do at any club, in the Premier League, in La Liga, in Ligue 1, wherever he goes, he will take a team to the next level. And fine, he hasn't proven himself in any other league, but not a single person in Arsenal. Arsenal, he walks in. Okay, we won't even talk about Arsenal. Chelsea, he walks in. United, he walks in. City, he walks in. Liverpool, probably not the way they play, but they could probably build around him. Any team in Spain, he walks in. Any team in Italy, he walks in. He improves every single team he goes to.
Except Spurs.
No, but he does without Spurs.
That's a great point. Oh, my word.
Without him at Spurs, he is terrible. Spurs are terrible.
Paul literally checkmated you. He was like, all of this stuff, I totally hear you.
Okay,
look at your own house.
Spurs is horrible without him. I'll give you that.
And that's what I'm saying. You don't find a Harry Kane in your training academy. He's not sitting there. It's a generational thing. He walks in and he does make every single club better. And that's why I'm saying Harry Kane, to Waheed's point, fine. He's got 3 years left. He doesn't only have 3 years left because the longevity of these guys' careers are going way longer.
Okay, so 3 years, look, outside of the 3 years, this season has been a step back in his career. This season has been horrible for him.
Yes.
But that's
been a massive step.
If we accept Dean's hypothesis that Harry Kane goes till 36, okay, then he's worth £100 million. Then he's worth £120 million.
Yeah,
probably worth £300 million. What are you talking about?
Okay, maybe not 300 mil, but
if Declan Rice is 150, Kane is 300.
Is this that beach stand in Cape Town? Huh? Is this what happened? You sniff it by accident. It's like the wild horse.
All of this comes to a single point of me just saying, Harry Kane, 100%. Okay, fine. He wanted to leave Spurs. Everyone knows that. And he didn't want to be at Spurs in the beginning of the season. But it takes a professional like that to show that, okay, I'm now here. I'm going to make the best of a bad situation. I'm going to pull my socks up when it needs to pull up. I've got a coach now that wants me to play. I can play in this system. And I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to become, again, what I could be. Not every other player can do that. Every other player that we've mentioned can't show up when
Okay,
and that's
but
why
he's
I'm
having
putting
a great
Kane.
season.
But that's why Kane is on a different level to these guys, and he's not just. You can't put him in this bracket of he's 29, so he's got 3 years. Oh, he's a waste or whatever. He's a different type of player.
But my worry, okay, and my worry is say United are after him, and say United do want him. When we bought Van Persie, 20 million pounds at that time was a lot of money. It wasn't a club record fee or anything like that, but it was a lot of money. He only gave us 3 good. He only really gave us 1 good season.
Yes, but that was because Van Persie was injured.
But the question though, sorry to butt in here, is what is value? Did Van Persie win a league? Yes. Is that worth the effort? Because what you're looking at, Waheed, is you're looking at that 100 million over a certain amount of time and saying, okay, I can write that money off over a 5-year span because I'm expecting to get X, Y, and Z over that period. And you have to almost look at it. Exactly. And you almost have to look at it in NBA terms. If you spend that money and you then get a player and 1 championship, it can make a huge difference for the entire culture of that organization. So let's say Harry Kane goes to, look, City are just churning out championships, but goes to United, and United then wins the league. That one league
the Champions
title,
League.
That one league title or Champions League title
would
feel value compared to the 100 mil. And I think that's where you have to look at it, is that it can't be.
I'm not saying no. I always say I'd rather see the money on the pitch than in the bank, especially considering our owners. But having said that, I do worry that United make another typical aging post-Fergie signing with commercial interests at heart, and he doesn't do the business.
It wouldn't be commercial interest. This guy.
Just go one step back and just look at it this way. Whenever you've signed a player from Spurs, has it turned out poorly?
No.
So
exactly.
There you go.
We are an unreal club.
It's ticked every single box. So let it be.
Yeah. Carrick, Berbatov, Teddy Sheringham. Teddy Sheringham did so well for us that they took him back when we were done with him.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't even know why you'd look at this and say, I don't want this Spurs legend, because he right now is possibly better than any one of those players was at their peak.
Okay, guys, I think we're going to have to end it there.
I
think
we
can
talk
forever.
Sheringham was 29, to be honest. If I'm not mistaken, I think Teddy Sheringham was 29 when he signed for Man United.
Yeah, so that's what it is. But let's end it there. I think we've convinced Waheed to sign Harry Kane. Hopefully he can go tell the Glazers to do the same. Some sort of like a Tom Brady-esque thing without the titles, because he's like a poor man's Tom Brady with a little bit of the hair going with him. But outside of that, thank you very much, guys, for an amazing show. Remember, we've got the FPL show as well tomorrow. So please do look out for that. Some guys are coming back, bringing back Mo Salah very late, but it's fine. We'll talk about that. So outside of that, here are the cheap seats. Goodbye, good night, and lesale kakahiso.